everybody is having a good and productive day today. Give everybody a time to come in. I'm kind of hanging out, waiting on my lunch. Had a very, very long morning, afternoon. Excuse me, taking care of a lot of business, and so doing a lot of different things. Got a lot going on. So, wanted to kind of talk about YouTube trauma. We're going to talk about how the drama of YouTube can lead to trauma and how that affects mental health. Uh, this is something that is not necessarily limited to YouTube, but it is limited. I mean, it's not limited to YouTube, but it spreads across all of social media and various platforms. And so I use the term YouTube trauma because we are currently operating on this particular application, and I will discuss things that are pretty much consistent with behaviors that go on the on YouTube. Okay, I've seen, for the most part, guys, a lot of social media platforms are very similar in nature, and some of the things that are done are a bit different based on the presentation and the usage of that app. YouTube has its own specific things. Facebook has its own specific things. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram. And so the biggest difference, in my opinion, that separates the drama that could turn into trauma involving YouTube is that YouTube allows you to go live for 11 hours. You have long form content that you don't necessarily see as often on Facebook, not on, TikTok, Instagram, and so on. It's the long form content that is coupled with the fact that we have all these people in the chat that have all these things that they can use to communicate and also donate to you. And so a lot of traumatic events that occur on YouTube stem from things that happen in someone's real life or what we call behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, or somebody's real life, and for all intents and purposes, can highly influence what a person does, or how they perform, or how they operate online. And so I thought about the evolution of myself as a content creator. And in thinking about that, I focused on when I first began watching YouTube and being a content creator at the same time, which is around 2017, is when I was, I just started creating content, and I also was a part of a couple of sectors. And I saw and I witnessed people go through traumatic events. As a mental health professional, fortunately and unfortunately, I've seen several people in crisis situations. Okay? And, several crisis situations. And these are things that, as a professional, I'm prepared to handle because I've dealt with spontaneous crisis situations in any environment, whether it's in the professional settings, personal life, out in the public, or what have you. And so it never dawned to me that as a mental health professional who happens to be a content creator, that you would have to deal with very similar things. I've had at least 5 or more situations where someone was threatening to hurt, um to hurt themselves or worse. Okay, put their own life at risk. I've had situations where someone has threatened to hurt somebody else. I've had situations in which I talked someone and coaxed them to go into the hospital. Okay, I've done all of those things that I typically would do in my own profession. And so I'm gonna be honest, guys, I never processed or even thought about the fact that once you become a consistent content creator, you may have to utilize your skills, while interacting with others. And I just never looked at it that way. I looked at things from a very finite manner, tunnel vision. I'm just going to do content. The first year and a half, almost 2 years of me creating content, I only created uploads. Shout out to Ms. Murph. I only created uploads. I did not have constant interaction with people live while I communicated with people through the chat or the comment section, and those that had my email would communicate with me through email. I never was communicating with people live like we can now with all the different tools that YouTube has evolved into and has accommodated to create a lot more online interaction. All you had was Google Chat or whatever it was, or not Google Chat. It was something Google Chat or whatever that people utilize to go live. And that was it. And so I just uploaded videos. And finally, I want to say probably around November of 2017 was when I finally had the courage to go live and do a live. As a matter of fact, I didn't forget, I went live on a Saturday night. Late one Saturday night around like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I decided, because I wanted to do it late where I figured I wouldn't get as many people watching or whatever, which I thought. And then you learn, YouTube content creation is 24/7. People are wide awake. All during the night. And so when I went live, I had people that came in and watched the live stream that I did. Shout out to NC Worker. How are you doing, brother? And so kind of shifting back, a lot of people created content out of trauma that they experienced in their real life or trauma that they experienced online. That trauma in itself triggered people to act in irrational and emotional ways, verbalizing things, responding to things, facial expressions, presentation, voice projection, acting out in all types of theatrical ways in which there obviously was an unhealthy response to stressors. Okay? And when I talk about that, I'm talking about people getting mad at, the person they're dating, they're married to, people mad at other content creators for whatever reasons, talking behind their back, recording videos, getting kicked out of your house, homeless, You lost your money, lost your keys. You're mad at somebody that said this, or somebody you don't even know. And unfortunately, when we look at this, people experience YouTube trauma a lot from people that they don't really know. And then you have those who experience trauma from those that they do know, particularly in their real life. But a lot of the trauma, a lot of the YouTube trauma that is experienced is usually experienced by repetitive, consistent, repetitive, very, very triggering comments and behaviors and manipulation of content in an effort to anger, upset, trigger, and to embarrass another content creator. Okay? These things happen on a day-to-day basis in any sector. And so I have had situations, and I literally remember the last really, really traumatic event I had. I had a traumatic event, not the last one, but I've had so many. But I've had people who've contacted me after having a long, intense argument with somebody that they don't even know. Let me repeat. I have had phone calls from people who would call me upset about what somebody else did online. They live on the West Coast. That person lives on the East Coast. There's basically 40 plus states between the both of you. Okay? And I consider it trauma when it is ongoing, when you're being harassed, when you're being defamed, you're being bullied, and you are trying to enjoy utilizing the YouTube space, and you're constantly being bombarded with videos, posts, in chats, all types of literature that has a tendency to speak negative of you in such ways. And unfortunately, because of the fact that the nature of social media, the people who are the perpetrators of this, they have no, people have no feelings. Like when people talk about their connection in these parasocial relationships, I really, really question how people think how close they really are to somebody they never met and don't know. But we communicate through email, we talk on the phone, we video chat. And I'm even say this, even if you have consistently met somebody, there's still a layer of anticipation for someone to do something that you never anticipated. And I have experienced that personally, and so have others. And so in a therapy session, because I've had clients who complained of being cyber harassed and had issues. I've had situations of people being stalked or misled. I've had clients, particularly middle-aged females, who've talked about experiencing situations using dating apps. I've had issues with kids in high school misusing social media apps and being harassed. I've had several with high school students. I had one situation where I had a school teacher and a kid who harassed another person in that school environment. I've had people trolling another person constantly, no matter where they go. If they go to Instagram, they're there. If they go to, you know, TikTok, they're there. They go to YouTube, they've hacked into their system to constantly harass them. That's traumatic. These things can be traumatic. Shout out to Must Be Trini Gal. And how you doing, Mahogany Roots and MJ? I watch you from the clouds, Queen. How you doing? And so YouTube trauma has the people who inflict this type of trauma, they have no boundaries, nor do they respect the privacy, nor do they care about the outcome that could transpire due to their nefarious behaviors. And so, unfortunately, for most people who inflict in these behaviors, all they pretty much care about is clicks, views, and YouTube acceptance and validation from whatever space that they're operating from. Whatever space. And I would say probably between 2019 or maybe 2022, I had several situations of people who had SI, which is suicidal ideations. Several. Not only that, I've also had experienced situations in which people have had that history that were online and they didn't want anybody to know. And so what I can say is that one of the things that that inspire me to continue to operate in certain spaces is that I appreciate people who know me to be a therapist and they seek some level of interaction that they would not do online as far as live, but they will be more secretive about it because they want their confidence and things like that through email. Okay, and I do appreciate people who've asked me questions and wanted to know certain things of how to deal with the trauma that they've experienced online and also trauma that they may have experienced in their real life. I definitely appreciate those who have engaged in that. Now, Must Be Trina Gal, you being naughty? She said, I'm looking for a private therapist. You funny. And so that is the reality that YouTube itself produces, and the format in which we interact can produce trauma for those who don't know how to deal with it. And so part of it is that most people don't want to disengage. And what I mean by disengage is just literally log off. There's a sense of, in my opinion, people who don't want to log off, they have a sense of, I need to respond. I don't want somebody to feel like they won, and I have the right to use this whenever I want. It's the other person that needs to stop, which is true. You do have the right to utilize any application. It's your prerogative. However, you have to function accordingly. Okay? And so if you're a person who is thin-skinned, who can easily be emotionally triggered, who may in many times either allow YouTube to affect your real life or your real life affects how you operate on YouTube. And just like so many others, people that do a story time and so forth, or they are going through a spontaneous situation that they want people to know. A lot of people that think, hey, I want the world to know this just happened to me in real time. I want the world to know. And to me, it speaks to what people are willing to do. It speaks to what people are willing to do to become viral. Shout out to Spice. Spice said YouTube is the best reality show. YouTube is a reality show. It is definitely speaking. It gives the personality of a real-time reality show with all types of people from all over the earth who have certain perspectives. Okay? Now, I'm continuing to get a Q&A sticker saying common phrase. They want me to create a Q&A, but I'll wait till the next time, because I've never done that before. I've never done that. Like, once I'm, got things going with talking, I'm just talking. So I'm actually waiting on my lunch. I'm waiting on my lunch. Taking me a little break and everything. Must be Trini Gal said, y'all need a Libra in your life to help with your balance. I'm a Libra. You being funny. But I must say that there's multiple ways to handle trauma. And I've always proposed, if things are getting too overwhelming for you, shut it down. Yeah, we're both Libras, Trini Gal. Or disengage in spaces, join new spaces, or operate in such a way that you don't go into chats and don't panel hop. I've had situations with people who panel hop, who experience trauma in certain things, but you know what they continue to do? They continue to panel hop. So you continue to panel hop, and this is the outcome, and you don't want to change your behavior. Well, you're going to continue to experience the same behaviors from the same people. Okay? And so someone posed a question to me about me being this special, just myself as a content creator who has left a couple of spaces. I basically don't operate in the manosphere, and I don't operate in the Umar Johnson sector, despite people, tying me there because of my history in those sectors. So it's almost like a fact, it's almost to the perspective of, you can never, once you get in a sector and you have history there, you never leave. Even if you, basically, the most you can do is either you can stop interacting with the people that are in those sectors, and you stop doing the content. I've stopped doing the content. I stopped doing the content, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to continue to do content on you. Spice says you're still a hot topic due to making headlines. Yes. And some of this can, and in many ways you can relate this to me, but I don't look at as if this has been traumatic as far as what people are doing, because I've experienced this, particularly in the Umar Johnson sector. It's basically normal for me to be the topic of conversation. In the manosphere, I've had times where people did tons of videos about me, about alleged, scandals with women and different things like that, and so on. But I'm used to this in certain spaces. This is like every time I consistently do some things, there are people that are now not to this level, but that's a common thing. People do that. Okay. So Think First stated, yes, you will be the talk about when the feds claim. Okay, let me take this person out. All right, so that is basically the reality of it. And so you have to understand, and I've stated this when I'm going to get my food, get my lunch. When you're doing content, you have to understand that you are taking certain risks. Okay, you're taking certain risks, and in those certain risks, there are people who um, don't want to see you thrive. They don't want to see anything good happen to you. There's certain people I don't get what where people um, basically watch your every move, any video. Um, I'm fine, thank you. All right. They watch everything you do, and they make comments or they make posts. You can leave a comment in a comment section, and they'll make posts. So there are people who live vicariously through you, and they watch you like a hawk, your every move, and they make comments about it. Like I experience that all the time. Like what's going on now with me doesn't. It's nothing new. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You have a good day.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So got my lunch. I'm about to eat up. Just wanted to kind of chop it up with you all for a little bit. But I've had clients that have had issues with this. And so the clients that I've had issues with dealing with YouTube trauma, but really more like social media, but I'm using the term YouTube because this is the platform. Um, Most of my clients who had issues with social media trauma mainly were on Facebook and Instagram. Um, Facebook and Instagram, and I had a couple that were on TikTok. Most of them didn't have issues on YouTube. They didn't utilize YouTube. Particularly younger kids, they don't. To me, the younger generations are not all that in tune with YouTube. I find that YouTube is more of a. It's actually becoming almost like Facebook, where most people on Facebook are older. I think the younger generations have more options as opposed to people who utilize who utilize. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get this situated. Damn it. Okay. Okay. All right. So the younger group, the younger generation, they seem more in tune with using more options than older generations. And so I talked to them about, managing their daily activities, incorporating more positive activities into their life, being in positive environments. And to me, take a break. I've taken many breaks from YouTube. There are times where I may take 2 months, a month or two, several weeks without doing no content and watch very little content. Okay? And so that's just the reality. And so I took breaks just for the fact of just business wise and because I just, I took vacations. I had other things going on, work as far as with my business and everything was too overwhelming. I don't have time. I may watch because a lot of and I've actually felt like one of the biggest triggers to getting on and acting out is watching too much content. Okay. And so Spice asks the question, is the mental health field keeping up with the impact of social media on the psyche? That's a very, very good question, Spice. And so my question is, yes, they are. And to me, the space that they're the most critical of is TikTok. The mental health field, to me, I see more articles and things on TikTok than any other social media platform. They're very critical. Professionals like myself, educators, counselor educators, psychologists, and et cetera, they're very, very critical of TikTok because TikTok has a lot more, and to believe it or not, TikTok has a lot more misinformation as it relates to people going on TikTok self-diagnosing themselves. Okay. And so, give me a second. And so the mental health field is catching up, and they are highly aware of social media affects one's psyche, one's mental health. There's tons of things that relates to social interaction, also trauma, childhood trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma, uh, things that relates to PTSD. There's a huge focus on things that have led you to be so emotionally tied to the fact that I want to utilize social media so much. Shout out to Miss T Pre. And so a lot of the content that focuses on content creation kind of highlights those things, Spice. It highlights the fact of what they're experiencing online, but it also highlights the precursor to the overusage of social media is based on one's inadequacies in life, whether it is relationship wise, sexual wise, which of course one of the biggest industries on YouTube and in Black YouTube period is the gender war, relationship, dating, marriage, red pill ideologies, pink pill. I mean, all that whole industry itself. That whole industry itself is a moneymaker. Okay. Okay. So, so I want people to understand that. I want people to understand that. So, the industry for that is huge. The industry for that is huge, and it's a moneymaker. It's a moneymaker. I was somewhat involved in a little bit of that, and then I kind of dabbed into, calling myself Coach D and doing some of that stuff. And I got, to be honest with you, I enjoyed doing the Coach D videos. The problem was the headache of getting new people to come on, and the headaches of dealing with, people, my crazy schedule and their schedule. Like one of the most discouraging things that happened was when I had about five or six African women from all over the country who were going to talk about their dating experience with African American men and in the diaspora. And some of them were actually friends with each other. And so, man, our schedules were so out of whack that I could never get things situated. I dropped the ball on that because I should have been more accommodating to them, but at the time I wasn't. Okay. Must be Trinity. I say I love the name Coach Captain D. So Spice states, yes, people get online and spew harmful biased rhetoric, and people ingest it through doom scrolling or 10-hour live streams. They do. What's going on, beautiful Bernice? Unfortunately, guys, and I'm gonna say this, a lot of people speak on things that are not, they have no expertise in. Like, say for me, there have been many times that I've spoken on things, even in mental health, that if I'm not an expert in a certain area, I will tell you. Like, I'll give you an example. As it relates to, let's say, I'm just going to, I'm trying to think of a disorder. Let's say eating disorders. Now, I have probably worked with maybe 3 or 4 individuals in my life. I've never worked at a clinic that focuses on eating disorders. I'm not an expert in that, okay? And I don't speak on eating disorders, even though I've had clients who have had comorbidity as it involves their primary diagnosis to anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa. Okay, but I would never come online and get out of my lane to talk about that, knowing that I don't have the practical experience to speak on that. Okay, okay, and that's just the facts. Okay, certain things as it relates to psychological assessment and testing, projective testing, I would never talk about that because I don't have the expertise. But unfortunately, you have people who may be, let's say they practice civil law and they're speaking on criminal law. You got people who focus more on corporate law and they're speaking on things that they're speaking on things related to medical malpractice. There are people who do things like, or there are people who, they have 20 years working in elementary education. They speaking on education in high school or higher education. These are the things you encompass online. People getting out of their body, making comments and speaking on things, even if they work in that industry, but in a different area, speaking as if they are experts and they know things. And so my position is, like, for me, I don't speak on things that's outside of my expertise. I don't, because I know better. And I don't feel comfortable with doing so. I speak on things and I have a wide range of expertise. I speak in things that are in within the range in which I know. Okay? And that's just being honest about it. Okay? And so I wanted to kind of talk about that and kind of speak on it because I think it's necessary. Oh my God, look, this thing is okay. But I'm getting ready to close this live stream down because I want to go ahead and head back to the office and eat. Give me a second, guys. Just yesterday, I had a content creator who was like, keep your eyes on the road. Yes, my eyes are on the road. Okay? I'm keeping my eyes on the road. And I'm going to chat with you as I keep my eyes on the road. So I won't be looking at the chat. But, man, there are threats, man. There are people who give threats. I consider YouTube trauma when people, to be honest with you, the closest thing I had to a traumatic event when I actually had a YouTuber that attempted to come to my office, my office in Houston, and come see me to do an interview. And I didn't know whether or not he was going to try to harm me or not. I had a guy that did that about 3 years ago. About 2 or 3 years ago, about 3 years ago. The guy basically came to my office with a camera and told me to get down there and interview. I won't come see me. And he actually went live on his phone as he was walking to my office. That was a traumatic event. Okay? That was a traumatic event. And I was so shocked that that person would go through that lengths, would go that far in order to get clicks and views and to create a viral scenario that would have been compromising to my well-being and his freedom. But that happens. That happens. Okay. So that is the reality, guys. That is the reality of I hate to say it, but it's basically the reality of doing content creation, the risk that you take. Unnecessary risk. that is fueled by people who don't care about the consequences of what they're doing. They don't care. They really, really don't care. And they want to make a point. They want to make a spectacle of themselves and others. And so these are the things that happen. Um, I've had people who doxed me and put out different things and threatened to come see me. I had people call my businesses and things like that. Um, and I've had to publicly go out and file charges and all this other stuff. And I just never dreamed that this is what content creation is. Like, this is what you have to do at times. Like, this is too much. But just as those, it's once you get have an emotional tie to where you like, I have to respond, I have to say this, I have to do these things. That's where it becomes dangerous for you. And I'm guilty of this myself, because there are times where I could have just logged out and never came back. Okay? And basically what I did was I just took breaks. I thought, I'm always do content. And I really, really enjoy doing content. But at the point where I got tired of not doing content that was topic related. I don't want to do content about somebody else. I don't want to do content talking about other people. And so that got really old to me, like really fast. It's not fulfilling. To do content about another content creator, to me, is senseless all the time. Yeah, and I do have regrets. I have regrets for, you know, just ending content creation altogether, or going to another platform. I think that I was probably better served going to TikTok and Instagram, and maybe Instagram or Twitter or something like. I could have done other platforms, or I could have actually, be honest with you, I think for the type of content that I create, I would have best served creating which I did. I did a podcast, and I should have actually just did a podcast where I did series. It was not as interactive. You just posting, doing all time with a proper route for the type of content that I really do as a professional. That's actually the lane I should have stayed in, or should have put all my attention to. But that type of content is not as interactive. So, and that's the issue I had with it. But I was probably better served doing that. It doesn't come with all of the stuff, the issues that you would have um, in other spaces. It's not. So, um, unfortunately, it's water under the bridge now. So it doesn't matter, because I've always, I'm beyond that at this point. So with that being said, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Though I do appreciate you all um, for being here. I do appreciate you all for supporting me. I just wanted to talk about, YouTube trauma. And so please leave comments in the comment section. Anything you'd like to add to it, please subscribe, please share. Have a great day.